As I lay in bed, basking in the soft rays of the morning sun, I couldn't help but smile at the sight of my peaceful partner beside me. 39 meet me in my dreams. I was lying comfortably in bed. The sun's soft rays filtered into the room and highlighted the person beside me. His soft snores were music to my ears. Smiling in contentment, I simply watched his sleeping face. In hindsight, it was probably extremely creepy, but I didn't care. He looked so peaceful. It was a rare sight to see. There were no worry lines, no anger in his eyes. His breathing was normal and calm. Resting my face on my hand, I felt for the first time in my life that things were going great. I was where we wanted to be. I had finally found I had a group of friends with who I was close to. I had a purpose in my life. Nothing could destroy that. Gabriel stirred in bed. Groaning, he slowly peeled his eyes open and blinked a few times. "Good morning," I greeted it in a joyful voice. He cleared his throat and stretched his neck. His grey orbs were still hazy as he was still waking up. I could get used to waking up like this. "That was the best night's sleep," he commented. Dro's eye. I chuckled at his tone, finding it endearing and adorable. I wouldn't tell him that, though it would only end in me hurting his ego. I flickered my gaze to the clock by his nightstand and nearly gasped at the time. It was nearly 9 in the morning. Normally, we'd be training at this time. "Oh shit, we've got training," I exclaimed, throwing the warm dew off my body. To my utter surprise, Gabriel chuckled at my antics and flicked the duvet back on me. Puzzled by his behavior, I shot him a look. "We're not going to training today. Liberty," he informed me, casually. As soon as the words fell out of his mouth, I gasped. Gabriel was not the type of person to not go training. Did something happen to him? Did someone give him something they shouldn't have? I racked my brain for some logical answer, but I couldn't provide any. It was certainly a mystery. There had to be some explanation. He wouldn't put training off for anything. "Why not?" I eventually asked, frowning. The corners of his lips quirked upwards as if he was fighting a smile. "What was he playing at?" "Yesterday, as you were getting ready, I recalled your words to me from a few weeks ago, and it got me thinking. I don't know the basics about you and vice versa," he commented. "To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." However, I could tell there was a great deal of weight behind what he was saying. He felt the same as me. So, eager to hear him talk more, a glint formed in his alluring orbs, full of mischief. He was so carefree at this moment. I wanted to treasure this moment always and keep it in a bottle, safe and locked up. "So, we're going to have a day to ourselves. No training, no meetings, just me and you in bed." I swore my heart melted at his words. He was not a romantic person, not by any means, but small acts like this showed his feelings. A full, blown, pleased smile stretched onto my face. Pure happiness flooded inside of me. A moment together, just me and him. I liked the sound of that. I commented, "To my agent extraordinaire, mythical, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." It could almost be sickening how thrilled I was. I had never understood how people in love could lose any sense of embarrassment. Now I understood. I liked the sound of that a lot. "Good." He nodded his head. "Lazuli, tell me what your favorite color is." I quirked an eyebrow. "Oh, so we're starting there." Confidently. "Yes." I blew out a breath and wriggled closer to him. The bed was massive, and even though there wasn't much distance between us, we were close enough. "My favorite color is green. Not my eye color green, but dark green. The color of the forest," I told him, reminiscing in my home world. The forests back home were gorgeous. Everything there, trees, grass, flowers, became one. They flourished. Tears formed in the corner of my eyes at the reminder of how much I missed my home. I wanted to take Gabriel there one day. I wanted to take all of my friends there. They'd love it. Gabriel's orbs softened. "What about you?" I asked him, Curiously, he pondered over it for a moment. I don't really have one. Arching an eyebrow in disbelief, he smiled bashfully. Next question, he said before I could say anything else. Rolling my eyes, I thought of something simple to ask him. What about your favorite food? Gabriel could answer this question. That's an easy question. It has to be a large roast dinner. A smile of adoration slipped onto my face. I felt so happy at this moment. This was what I had dreamed of my entire life. Oh, that sounds good. I can imagine having one right now. At 9 in the morning. Checking the clock. My cheeks stained a bright pink color, but I still acted unashamed. Oh, yeah, definitely, I replied, jokingly. Gabriel lifted his hand and stroked my cheek. Affectionately, I fluttered, my eyes closed in pure bliss. The tingles trailed all over my face. He leaned forwards, causing his minty breath to hit my face. How he didn't have morning breath was beyond me. I felt Gabriel's soft, plump lips land on my cool cheek and plant us off kiss. I saw every cliché thing: stars, rainbows, fireworks, you name it. You smell so good, he whispered against my cheek. Lightly, that's such a werewolf thing to say. I laughed, playfully slapping him on the shoulder. Gabriel pulled back and narrowed his eyes. Liberty, I think you're forgetting that I am a werewolf. He reminded me as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I snorted and rolled my eyes. I don't think I can ever forget that. Mr. Alpha, his eyes lit up with amusement. I had never seen him like this before. You didn't tell me what your favorite food is. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gazing deeply into my eyes, I shuffled even closer to him by this point. It shouldn't have been possible, and released a happy sigh. Okay, I'll tell you, but don't laugh. He knitted his bushy brows together. Why would I laugh? You'll find out in a moment. Don't laugh, he conceded, promising to keep a straight face. Loosening my breath. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's spaghetti hoops on toast. Peering up at him, I watched his face transform from seriousness to amusement. Wait. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I mashed my lips together and nodded my head. When I was little, I would refuse to eat any meal except that. My parents didn't know what to do. To this day, none of us know why I only wanted to eat that. Breaking his promise, he smiled and let out a small chuckle. I glared at him angrily and punched him in the shoulder. Lightly. It would have felt like a tap. Okay, I'll stop laughing, shaking my head. I boldly rested my head on his rising chest. My fingers drew circles on his smooth skin. My face heating up. Silence ensued. It was peaceful and reassuring. Then, a question popped into my head. What were your parents like? He stilled under me, shifting my head. I stared up at him worriedly. Did I say the wrong thing? Gabriel. I called his name, hesitantly. I heard him inhale sharply, his grey eyes glazing over. I don't really talk about them, he mentioned, trying to keep his voice level. I knew that. The only time he talked about his parents to me was when he told me about his past. Since then, I hadn't heard anything else. I had shared everything about my family, wanting him to know more about me. Now I wanted the roles to be reversed. I know. That's why I asked. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gabriel sighed and patted my hair. Delicately. I don't like talking about my parents, especially my dad. I want to get to know you, but if difficult to talk about him, then you don't have to. I don't want to push you, I murmured, sincerely. He fought the urge to close in on himself. It was something he always did, so to not do it right now went against every single part of him. My dad was very stubborn. He would never shift his opinion once it was made. It was damn near impossible for his beta to talk to him sometimes. As soon as I understood who I was to become, he told me the pack was always the most important thing in my life. It was my duty to protect them at all costs. Staring at me with so much intensity, I thought my heart would burst. I recalled the day we spoke, the day after I discovered he was mine, and what he said to me. His father and mother weren't mates. They lived for the pack, always putting it above anything else. Did that include above it? To think of his childhood and what he must have experienced made my stomach twist. My mother was gentler. She was the daughter of an alpha and knew how to be a Luna. The pack adored her. He inhaled, taking a moment. They knew my parents were true mates, but they had something. A deep respect for each other and dedication to the pack. Do you miss them? I murmured, grabbing onto his hand tightly. He needed to know that I would support him no matter what. Every day. He answered instantly, appearing to surprise himself. Sensing he was in a bad spot emotionally, I wrapped an arm around his broad, tan chest. Discreetly, I inhaled his intoxicating scent whilst he buried his face into the crook of my neck. His unsteady breath licked my skin, making me clutch onto him even tighter. Thank you for sharing this with me, I whispered. Honestly, it meant a lot. He smiled through his pain and brought his mouth against mine. If I had thought this real, I would have decided to stay in bed. We'd ever had a full day to ourselves where we could bond and learn about each other. The brain tends to produce comforting things when the body is going through trauma. I was dying and I wanted my last thoughts to be sweet. I'd only wished I had had a bed date with Gabriel. The worst part was I never got to say I loved him. He would never know. 40 never going to give up. The blood in my heart was pounding loudly. The world around me was muffled and distorted. I could barely see anything in front of me. I could barely see my mate Liberty, who was barely holding on to life. I couldn't remember what had led up to this moment. My brain refused to relive it. Standing next to me was Blade, who had a worried expression on his face. Sitting on the only chair in the hospital room was Sabrina, who was softly crying into Gomez's shirt. The doctors hovered over my mate, baffled. Liberty's siblings Jacob and Declan had disappeared, gone to tell the rest of their family what had happened. They were also searching for a cure. We have never seen anything like this. I don't know what poison it is, they had said. Regretfully, failing the Luna was the worst thing imaginable. Knowing my mate might not survive, having doctors confirm she would die if they didn't find a solution quickly, was like the ultimate punch to the stomach. The kind of one where it feels like it destroys your kidneys and forces you to crumble to the floor in defeat. I didn't want to do anything else. I should be out there finding some sort of antidote, but I was frozen, stuck in a dark and cold loop of depression. Who would do such a thing to my mate? There was only one answer, Delta fucking Moon. They would do something as low as to poison the Alpha's mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Blade called my name, sharply. There was an edge to his voice that didn't go unnoticed by anyone. Reluctantly, I turned my head to face him. His hazel eyes were glazed, signifying that he was mine, thinking someone. There's a man at our borders, demanding to speak with you. You can sort it out on your own. Blade, you don't need me there. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Brazenly, my attention was immediately brought back to my gorgeous mate, who was pale. Her chest rose and fell slowly. I could hear her faint heartbeat, barely thumping. But Alpha, he tried to argue, but I shot him a harsh look. Blade, my mate and your Luna is currently lying on my bed, barely breathing. I have more pressing matters to deal with. I snapped, losing my cool. The room fell into a heavy silence. Blade's jaw ticked, but he managed to hold himself back. Unlike me, I had never lost control like that, but these circumstances meant I couldn't even try to hide my irritation. Every single emotion I felt was going into overdrive. I didn't truly understand my feelings for her, or maybe I tried to deny them until now. Where I could possibly lose her. It's Aziel. Gomez stepped up, gruffly. I froze and hesitantly rounded my gaze to him. His dark orbs held nothing but honesty. He was unafraid to face me during the worst time in my life because he knew they still had jobs to do. "You're sure?" Clearing my throat. Gomez and Blade shared a look and nodded their heads. For a moment, I slipped back into alpha mode. "Blade, go collect him with a handful of warriors. Bring him here. Is that a good idea?" To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Blade asked, skeptically. "Just do it." "Blade." I shot back, coldly, stiffly. He obeyed and left. I drifted my eyes back to Liberty and slowly approached her lying form. Her usual light blonde hair had lost its shine. The ethereal aura that normally surrounded her had vanished. It made my heart clench seeing her so close to death. I had taken my mate for granted, pretending she didn't exist for so long. I had lost so much time with her already. What if I lost her? I didn't think I would cope without her. I could before I met her, but since getting to know her, since getting used to her presence, I needed it. She was breathing air into my frozen self, and without her, I feared I would return to that state. "I can't lose you. I just found you. I just accepted you. Don't go." I lifted my hand up to her freezing cheek, wishing to feel the warmth of her body on my skin. "Please stay with me," I whispered under my breath, leaning over her face. My lips pecked her soft cheek as my eyes fluttered shut. "Gabriel, she's strong. They'll find something," Sabrina tried to reassure me, also praying for Liberty to pull through. The Luna of the pack could arguably be the most important member. I didn't see that before, but I did now. I would crumble. I wouldn't be able to cope and look after my pack. We would be crushed by Delta, Moon, any other packs that wanted to attack us. If she was awake right now, she would tell you to stop worrying and wipe away that worried look. She added, laughing to herself. I even managed to crack a smile for a split second. She's not going to disappear that easily. I wanted to believe her badly. Sabrina wanted to believe her own words too. Why would Aziel be here? Sabrina then wondered, peering up at her stoic mate before glancing at me. "Aziel's here," a familiar voice queried from behind me. Morpheus glided over to us. His green eyes are hard and concerned. He flickered his similar eyes over his younger sister. Softly, "He is at my border. My beta is bringing him here now," I informed him. Morpheus clenched his fingers into a tight fist. "And how is my sister? What is her state like?" he quizzed, moving closer to Liberty. I could tell he cared for his only sister deeply. They all did. Family was important to Phi apparently. The doctors don't know what poison was used, so they don't know how to counteract it. We don't even know how much time she has left. Her condition over the last 2 hours has only worsened, though. I managed to speak in a wavering voice. His eyes were on the side of my face, reading my expression. "I have my brothers looking into it as well. We will find something," he told me, determined. Once again, I tried to believe him, but there was only so much hope I could give myself. My hand glided down to her hand, and I interlocked our fingers. I would never give up on her. It didn't take long for Blade to arrive with a grinning Aziel. I had never seen him before, and his physical appearance was not what I expected. I had assumed he would have a big, burly build, but he was lean and shorter than me. He had platinum blonde hair which seemed lighter than Liberty's, but a no glossy shine to it. His pale features were sharp and cunning. What made everything worse was the air of entitlement around him. Aziel was wearing a black suit as if he was attending a business meeting. At his arrival, I straightened my posture, rolled my shoulders back. The poker expression on my face revealed nothing. As soon as he stepped into the room, his eyes landed on my mate. "Oh, my pretty fiancé. I see your predicament is not what you expected. I did warn you." Triumphantly. It made my blood boil. If he knew about Liberty's situation, it meant he had something to do with it. My wolf was raging. He wanted this asshole's blood. I should have assumed you'd have something to do with this. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Morpheus commented. Emotional's as lie. Aziel sneered back at him. I should have known you knew where she was. Hiding her from me is a crime. The moment I found out about your plan, I made sure you would never see her again. He replied. Calmly, Morpheus possessed more control compared to the Dark Prince. He glowered at him before turning his attention to me. And you, the fucking mate. How dare you think you could have her? He had the audacity to act as if Liberty belonged to him, like he owned her. How did you know she's my mate? Trying to fight the urge to kill this bastard. Liberty wasn't kidding when she said he was a horrible person. Aziel's lips slipped back into a sly grin. His mood doing a quick 180 shift. It was enough to give me whiplash. Easy the same way I knew she was staying here. Playing house. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I summarized, coming to the awful realization far too late. Sabrina gasped, throwing a hand over her mouth. Glade and Gomez snarled furiously. To spy on a pack, it was a gigantic betrayal. Wolves were all about trusting every member of the pack. Took you long enough to work it out. He baited, adjusting his already neat jacket. My anger simmered under my skin, and I wanted nothing more than to knock that cocky smirk off his face. I could see what Liberty meant. He was unbearable. You bastard, I growled, fighting the urge to rip his throat out right now. It wasn't me who planted the spy. You can thank Delta, Moon for that. More specifically, Alpha's E. Egan was the one who ordered the spy here. Fucking Alpha's E. Egan. Leader of Delta, Moon, and the reason I had many headaches. Who is the spy? Blade asked, glaring at Aziel. Aziel tucked, shaking his head. That would be too easy to reveal. It's actually pretty obvious when you think about it. Annoyed by his cryptic riddles, I lunged at him, grabbing a fistful of his shirt by the throat. He wasn't even slightly intimidated by me. Temper. To my agent extraordinaire, mythical. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Attacking me won't help your mate, he admonished, glancing at Liberty. I hated his eyes on her. He didn't seem worthy enough to stare at her. Reluctantly, I peeled my hands off his shirt and shifted backward. Were you the one who poisoned her? He shrugged his shoulders, straightening his t-shirt. Indirectly, yes. I commanded Z. Egan's spy to administer it. We had to find that spy now more than ever. I also planted visions in Liberty's head, making her see you being poisoned instead of her. It was comical to watch her panic. Chuckling darkly, Liberty never told me this. Why didn't she come to me? The torment that must have had on her. She was so brave to brave. You're a bastard, I spat, disgusted. He simply laughed cynically, furthering my anger. I know. So, this was your plan all along, to poison Liberty out of revenge. I summarized, distastefully. He doesn't want Liberty dead, Morpheus stated, pulling my attention away from Aziel. I had forgotten he was in the room. He had been so silent. He was watching like a hawk reading Aziel and gathering information. Aziel grinned. You're right. Morpheus, I don't. I'm here to give you the antidote. My heart stopped, and for a split second, I felt hope, but then the rational side of me reigned in that feeling, reminding me that it would be too easy. Why would Aziel willingly give up the potion after boasting about his work in this? Noticing my hesitation, Aziel produced a small vial full of an onyx liquid. The poison given to Liberty was produced by Dark Phi. The only thing that would counteract it would be something also made by Dark Phi. It just so happens I have it on me, he told us, holding the vial tightly. And why would you give it up so easily? Especially after all the trouble you went through just to administer it. I voiced my doubts. I don't think you have the right to question me right now. Don't you care about your mate and her current state? Clenching my jaw, I turned to Morpheus. He knew the man more than me. We exchanged a silent look with each other, both unsure of how to proceed. My eyes drifted back to my beautiful mate who was barely hanging on for life. Did I want to take a chance? I wished Liberty was awake and able to tell me what to do. This thought struck me. I never needed guidance from other people. I was always so sure about what I wanted and needed. Yet, right now, I was terrified to make a choice in case it was the wrong one. What if Aziel's antidote was wrong and it kills her? She doesn't have long. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You can't dilly-dally all day, he reminded me. Annoyingly. Quiet, Blade hissed, shooting the arrogant prince a warning look. Aziel threw him a frosty glare in return. Give me the antidote, I demanded, making up my mind. I stretched my arm out, waiting for it. But I forgot to say. He leaned back, his eyes dancing with a challenge. I stiffened, unprepared for what he had to say next. Before I give you it, I want you to confront the spy. My lips pursed together. Is that really necessary now? Liberty doesn't have long left. He rolled his eyes. She'll be fine. I want to watch the Alpha punish his pack number. There was something wrong with this. I flickered my eyes to Blade. He wanted to know who was the traitor to. However, I was worried about Liberty. Fine. I relented, my jaw ticking. Tell me who it was. I can do one better. Dramatically, he clicked his fingers and a cloud of pink mist appeared next to him. Suddenly, there was a new person in the room. 41 trauma, what is this? Staring at a dumbstruck Carrie. Her dark brown orbs scanned the room and its occupants, never falling on Liberty's lying form. Don't act stupid now, Alpha Gabriel, Aziel taunted, pushing Carrie forwards. She's the traitor and the person who poisoned Liberty. Carrie gasped, crossing her arms over her stomach in a protective manner, trying to appear smaller. It was you, I spat, staring at her in a cold, unforgiving manner. She shrank under my gaze, flitting her eyes from one side to another. Oh yes, she was the one who told Delta, Moon everything and was the one who poisoned Liberty. As Ervan, smirking, quite sly. Don't you think? She sure knew how to fool all of you. This time, Blade was the one who stepped up. But Carrie, you've been with us for years. Why would you betray us? She inhaled shakily, her body trembling. I have never seen her so fragile before. She always seemed submissive but strong. If you don't answer him, you will be sent to the cells. Carrie, I threatened, my mind conscious of Liberty and her dire state. She shuddered at the mere thought of the cells, which was intimidating to any wolf. I had to. They made me. She stuttered. Sabrina, sympathetic towards Carrie, stood from her seat and approached her. She wrapped a comforting arm around Carrie's quaking shoulders, encouraging her to continue. I escaped from Delta, Moon years ago after I found out my mate chose to marry my sister's best friend. My sister Annika ushered me to leave, hoping it would help me move on. Bitterly, I was surprised to hear that Carrie had already found her mate, but they had rejected her, choosing someone else instead. I didn't hear anything from her. She paused, sucking in a breath. I heard the fear in her voice as she glanced up at Aziel. Had they met? And then I got a call from my sister's number. It was around the time Lunar Liberty arrived. But it wasn't Annika. It was Alpha Z. Egan. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He told me he had arrested my sister and that if I didn't do what I was told, he would punish her. My anger brewed internally. Alpha Z. Egan was a piece of work. Kidnapping an innocent wolf who was a part of his pack diabolical. He didn't deserve to be an alpha. He used his power for awful things. I'm so sorry, Alpha Gabriel. Carrie apologized, her knees knocking against each other. I noticed Sabrina had to support her, keeping her upright. He made me report back to him, telling him whatever I found. He was so interested in Luna. Beside me, Morpheus remained as still as a statue, listening closely. He had no idea who this girl was, but I knew he was mad. Perhaps at her for hurting Liberty or at Egan for abusing this girl. Egan wanted to know everything about her, and I was so afraid he'd hurt Annika, so I spied on you and her. I would rummage through her room, searching for anything about her. He somehow knew to warn Mates, she explained, furrowing her eyebrows together. Then, as I was walking through the woods on my break, I saw him. I heard heart rate drop as she pointed at Aziel with terror. He had an aura around him that could invoke fear into any person's heart. She must have been petrified when she saw him lurking in the woods. He knew who I was and told me he was working with Egan. I didn't know who he was, though. He handed me a vial and told me that on this day, at 9:30 precisely, I would have to give it to Luna Liberty. If I didn't, then he would kill Annika. She added, crying. My gaze bounced from her to him and I snarled. Of all people, placed a hand on my shoulder and held me back. I snapped my head in his direction angrily. He shook his head in response, silently telling me to bide my time. Tell them what else you did. Carrie, Aziel prodded, arching a blonde eyebrow. I breathed in and on out, focusing on control. I had never lost control like that before. My emotions were all over the place. My wolf was raging inside, wanting to save his mate. Carrie sniffled, rubbing her red eyes. I went through your room several times, making sure one time she saw me. He told me to act suspicious in front of Liberty to make her think I was going after you. And now my brave mate is lying on this bed, dying, I summarized, clenching my jaw. Carrie, I don't know what to say to you. You are a traitor to this pack and a killer. You should be killed for your actions. She let out a cry of horror, her knees unbuckling. Sabrina couldn't catch her this time, so she sunk to the floor with her. Sabrina's hazel eyes peered up at me from the floor, begging me to reconsider. Her heart was too big for this world. She always saw the good in people. However, I emphasized, dragging the word out. Carrie stopped sobbing and waited for me to continue. I can recognize what happened to you and can understand that you felt like you had no choice. That is why I'm not going to kill you. Carrie breathed a sigh of relief. Sabrina rubbed her arms reassuringly, thanking me with her eyes. When the battle with Delta Moon is over, we will rescue your sister Annika. From there, I will decide your fate. Wanting to move on from this conversation, if Liberty was awake, she would be telling me that I made the right choice. If I had chosen to execute Carrie, she would have argued to the nail. She wouldn't have forgiven me for killing Carrie. My heart stuttered again at the thought of my mate. Sabrina, take Carrie back to her room. I ordered Sabrina, wanting her out of the room in case Aziel became difficult. She nodded her head obediently, helping Carrie up. Gomez, go with them and make sure Carrie doesn't try anything. I mind-linked my gamma, still not trusting Carrie. Gomez left shortly after the two girls did, leaving my beta, the king of light Phi, prince of dark Phi, and my unconscious mate in the room with me. I moved to stand next to my mate, discreetly inhaling her intoxicating scent. She smelt so good, still her scent calming but also desirable. It drove my senses wild. Now, Aziel, I've done what you asked. Give me the antidote, I demanded, stretching my hand out awaiting. Aziel darted his eyes around the room, taking everyone in. He didn't look nervous even though he was outnumbered. He didn't lose his composure, but he certainly seemed hesitant. Was he deciding whether he should back out now or not? God actually murder him if he did. My patience was running thin, barely hanging on. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, Morpheus said in warning, seeming to grow an inch. He exhaled loudly and slowly slipped his hand into his inner jacket pocket. I watched his exact movements, my body alert. If he tried anything, I would snap instantly. I saw the small vial. Immediately, I stalked over to him and snatched it out of his hands, my eyes hard. If this doesn't work, I'll have your head, I declared, my voice full of promise, as Eel rolled his green orbs, acting nonchalant. So foul, so animalistic, he commented in disgust. I growled at him, along with Blade. Watch your tone. He held his hands up in surrender as I examined the vial. In my peripheral vision, I noticed my mate whose chest slowly rose and fell. My worry for her only increased. I felt Morpheus's powerful presence shift closer to me. We have no choice but to trust him. Give it to her. Gabriel, he murmured. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I popped the lid off and turned my body fully to her. I sat in the chair next to her and examined my mate's condition. Silently, I prayed to the moon goddess, wishing her to bring liberty back to me. Don't leave me. Steadily, I placed the vial between her parted lips, craning her neck upwards so she wouldn't choke. I watched as the liquid flowed from the bottle into her body. There was no going back now. 42 a furious elf, and nobody moved. Everyone waited with anticipation, watching her sleeping form. I could feel my heart hammering in my body as I eagerly waited for her to flutter her gorgeous green orbs open. But she didn't. She remained unconscious, her chest slowly rising and falling. I could feel the ounce of hope I had dwindled and fall into my stomach. Azel lied. He gave me false hope. Did he do it to watch my face crumble? I had underestimated how cruel he was. It was one thing to try and kill my mate, but this was a whole new level of sadistic. I recalled a time when Liberty told me about Dark Phi and their nature. They were the complete opposite of Light Phi Liberty. She was everything bright and joyous in the world. She made me want to be a better person. If that wasn't me declaring my love, I don't know what is. The feelings I had for her were on a whole new level. I couldn't imagine spending my life alone anymore. I couldn't imagine not being with her. If she died today, I couldn't survive. I would fall back into my old ways, but this time, I wouldn't be able to climb back out. She was more than my mate. She was my best friend, my family, and my hope. A world without her would be dark, it would never prosper. For me and my pack, she brought good and joy. Trying to be the man she had now helped to create wouldn't last long. I had seen with my own eye that life without a mate was like my dad always advocated that the pack should come first. However, I always knew deep down that that was all he had in life. His mate was human and already happily married. If she had been with him, he would have felt happiness and love. He wouldn't have hammered my responsibilities into my head. Perhaps our relationship would have been normal. I used to avoid thinking about my parents. Any time an image of them popped into my head, I'd immediately shut it down. My mother was a good woman and she tried her best to be the Luna of Red Night. I never really thought about what it must have been like for her. She never met her mate, never got a taste of what happiness could be. She admired my father, but there wasn't love between them. They were together for the pack. That was the only thing they had in common. If my mother was still alive, I imagine she'd have T-scared at my cold treatment toward Liberty. She might not have ever said anything about mates, especially around my father, but I knew she had great respect for them. She wanted to find hers. I'm sure she would have loved Liberty. The longer I stared at her, the more hate I felt. I was angry. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. With blazing eyes and a twisted face, I leapt to my feet and charged at Aziel, the man who promised so much and couldn't deliver. He deserved to die for what he did to my mate. I'm going to kill you. Shoving him to the wall, my hand was fisted onto his shirt once again. His green orbs widened momentarily before a smirk slid onto his devilish face. You can't try. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But you're not stronger than me, he taunted, truly believing he was invincible. The only problem he couldn't see or didn't want to see was that I was a manch, wanting to punish. There was nothing holding me back. The only emotion controlling me was pure rage. However, his cockiness would be his downfall. I would use this to my advantage. We shall see. Coldly, my eyes flashing as my wolf surged forwards, My power doubled and all I could see was red. Just as I aimed for his jugular, an invisible force knocked me backward, causing my body to collide with the freezing marble floor. I wasted no time getting back up. By now, Blade had now attacked Haziel too, protecting his alpha. I glanced at Morpheus, noticing how he hadn't stepped in. Then I remembered what Liberty's brother Jacob told me. If Morpheus used any sort of physical violence against Haziel, there would be a war of the crowns on their hands. Liberty could hurt him because she was with me, but he couldn't. Not unless he wanted all of the dark fire to attack. It must be hard watching and not being able to attack. He was more controlled than I. Blade was thrown backward by the same force that was used on me. The wind knocked out of his lungs. His wolf. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Shifted into his natural form, shredding his clothes. He growled at Haziel furiously. Haziel simply laughed humorously. Wolves can't beat me. It doesn't matter if you're in your skin or in wolf form. I have power you couldn't even fathom. I can crush you with the flick of my wrist. He laughed malically, boasting. When I approached him again, he didn't immediately push me away, wanting to humor me. He genuinely thought I wouldn't be able to leave a scratch on him. Well, I'd show him that wolves weren't meant to be messed with. My next attack was physical and involved my fists, not my fangs. I punched him in the stomach hard, and when he doubled over, I grabbed his shirt and threw him to Blade. He swiped at Haziel's face, creating 3 new, deep claw marks. Haziel hissed and used his magic, creating a form of dark mist. It was at that moment Gomez pressed into my mind. Urgently. There's a perimeter breach. A large group of Delta Moon wolves are coming through. The attack was happening. This was their big plan, have the Alpha distracted as they attacked. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Clenching my jaw, I quickly sifted through my possibilities. I couldn't defeat Haziel alone. Morpheus couldn't fight Haziel, but he could definitely help us against Delta Moon. I turned to Morpheus, who seemed to be focusing hard on the ground. He glanced up as he sensed my intense gaze on him. There's I know. He interrupted me, somehow knowing what was happening. Did he predict this? Or did he have a way of seeing Delta Moon? It was a question I'd ask him later. There was no time now. I'll go. Protect my sister. Flickering his eyes away from Liberty back to me. And protect yourself. I nodded sharply and switched my attention back to the matter at hand. Gomez, Morpheus is going to help. I have to deal with Haziel first. I'll be there as soon as I can. I told him through my mind link, knowing Gomez would happily lead the pack. Blade was now being choked by the mist. Haziel was grinning wickedly, enjoying his pain, angry that my best friend, my beta, was facing death. I let my claws elongate and cut him on the legs and the back. Haziel didn't let out a cry, but he did wince, making the black mist retract. So much for power I couldn't fathom. I knocked him to the ground and pressed my leg around his neck with as much pressure as I could muster. Blade shook off the pain and scrambled to his feet, his wolf sitting on his legs. Haziel struggled underneath us, trying to escape. He was gasping for air, bleeding out on the stone floor. Pathetically, his hands clawed at my shirt, trying to weaken me in some way. Just as I thought he was beginning to lose consciousness, he used his magic to throw us off him. I smacked into the wall, flying straight through it into the next room. Coughing, I looked down and saw my shirt was torn up. The bastard wobbly climbed to his feet and touched his face. The once handsome face was gone now. He truly looked as ugly as he was on the inside. Blade was on my floor. You're going to pay for that. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Stalking closer to me like a predator. No matter what difference in power, I still didn't fear him. All I could do was hate him with every fiber inside of me. It took a great amount of effort for me to clamber to my feet. Feeling dizzy, Haziel stopped in front of me, She should have never run away. She should have stayed with me. She would have felt true power. He thought Liberty would want to be with a man like him. He was truly delusional. She didn't love you. She thought you were a monster. Rolling my shoulders back, ready to fight him. She would have never stayed with you. Why would she want to be with an alpha when she could have a king? He asked rhetorically, thinking he had hit her spot. Did he think I was weak? Did he think my heart was thin and could easily be infiltrated? I had experienced more pain than he could even imagine. That made me stronger than him. You didn't know Liberty at all. My mate ran away because she didn't want to be your queen. It seemed fate was on her side as well because it made her fall into my pack. I spoke victoriously. His expression switched from triumphant to confused. His confidence was waning. Still, I will end you. You can die knowing you couldn't save your mate. Aziel's eyes started to glow a dark color and he used his invisible force to thrust me through the air. Soaring out of the window. The last thing I thought as my body touched the ground was Liberty. It seemed we would both see each other again soon in the afterlife. 43 The Luna and the Beta. To wake up after believing you had died was disoriented. I sat upright quickly, breathing hard. I could sense everything and nothing at once. My body hummed and my throat felt closed up as if I had an allergic reaction to something. I was aware I was lying on an uncomfortable bed. Frazzled, I slipped out of bed and took in my surroundings. I should be wondering how the hell I'm awake right now, questioning whether this was another dream or it was reality. The dream flashed in my eyes and I realized I hadn't seen Gabriel yet. Where was he? Did he save me? Lying on the floor in wolf form was Blade, covered in blood. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I rushed to his side, falling to my knees. My hand located his pulse and my eyes widened at how slow it was. What had happened? Blade. I caught his name. Shakily. Gabriel's beta had started to grow on me once he found out who I was. He no longer glared at me and I no longer scowled back at him. I didn't wish him any ill will and I respected him for being loyal to Gabriel. Gabriel couldn't lose him. Reigning in my hectic emotions, I placed my hands on Blade's chest and fluttered my eyes closed. The magic I was about to use was borderline dangerous and if I cast it wrong, I could delve into darker magic. I shouldn't be doing this well, let alone after I just woke up from a death, like slumber. Jacob had once taught me how to use this spell in case I ever needed to use it, which I didn't until now. Like I had the ability to heal a gift that dark I couldn't do, but the cost could sometimes be great. It was why few did it. The toll on the caster could be catastrophic. Please let this work, I thought to myself. Biting my bottom, I envisioned Blade's beating heart, visualizing it picking up its pace. The rest of the world became dark. My attention was on Blade and restoring his life. Slowly, I felt the pace of his heart pick up. I didn't feel success just yet. Afraid that if I did, it would go horribly wrong. I imagined Morpheus encouraging me right now. He had the ability to say one thing, even the tiniest sentence, which could make the biggest difference. So, with a final push, I willed Blade to wake up. His hazel eyes snapped open and his body transformed back into his human self. Nudity was not a thing to be self-conscious about as a werewolf, so he didn't blush when he looked at me. Hi, I greeted, dazed and shocked. My hands hurt a little from the power that had slid through them, but that wasn't what made me feel dizzy. It was the fact I had performed the spell correctly, without killing Blade. I wouldn't tell him that though. Not when he was on the verge of death. Luna. Sitting upright. He had never referred to me as Luna before. It made my heart swell with pride. What did you do? I cupped the back of my neck, staring at him sheepishly. Well, I think I just saved you. Almost as if he knew exactly what I was talking about. He slapped his hand over his heart, checking to make sure it was beating. A look of pure wonder shone brightly in his hazel orbs. He didn't seem stunned that I saved his life, just surprised to be alive right now. How are you alive right now? He suddenly asked me, trying to put it as nicely as possible. I don't think he's ever tried to act so nice before. My lips sloped downwards. My mind just as puzzled as his. I have no idea. I woke up like this. Where's everyone else? What's happening? Why were you on the brink of death? He flinched at my last question, making me send him an apologetic look. Well, a lot happened since you drank the poison, he admitted, unsure of how to start. A few hours after you drank it, Prince Azazel appeared at the border, demanding to see Alpha Gabriel. When he got here, he claimed to have a cure to the poison, but only if Alpha punished the spy in the pack. My eyebrows shot up. You discovered Carrie was the spy. His eyes snapped to mine. You knew. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And he was back. My eyes narrowed as I turned defensive. I saw her acting suspicious, but it wasn't enough for me to think she was a traitor. It was only when I was poisoned and I saw her walking away from the table that I realized she had betrayed me. Lay bowed his head ashamed, clearly embarrassed about acting like that towards me. He was supposed to respect me, not question me. Right. Sorry, Luna. Meeting my eyes once again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I accepted his apology, letting his comments slide. We would get nowhere if I held a grudge. Continue. But Alpha Gabriel didn't punish her. Not after Carrie told us why she was a spy for Delta Moon. So, he sent her and Sabrina into a room whilst he spoke to Azazel. Glade told me, wiping his face tiredly. The cuts on his body, the ones not deep, were already starting to heal. Werewolves had remarkable healing. The ones in power like alphas, betas, and gammas could heal in a few minutes. They are rarely scarred. So did Gabriel give me the antidote. I summarized. Still lost. If Gabriel gave me the potion, then where was he? Why didn't he greet me with open arms? And what on earth happened to Blade? I was impatient to find out answers. There was a gnawing feeling in my heart, telling me something was wrong. Blade nodded his head, a crease forming between his brows. Yes, but it didn't work. You didn't wake up. That's when Alpha Gabriel went ballistic. He tried to attack Azazel, but he wasn't in the right mindset. Azazel kept taunting him. It was hard to fathom Gabriel losing control. Then again, I had never seen him in a predicament like this. How did he feel about me being poisoned? I imagined not well. Our bond as mates was growing rapidly. We were starting to become inseparable. To lose your soulmate was the ultimate heartbreak. I didn't wish it on my greatest enemies. I tried to assist him, but Azazel is more powerful than any of us thought. Shamefully, tenderly, I placed a hand on his bare shoulder. Blade, you have no reason to be ashamed. I didn't warn any of you of what Azazel's powers were. He is royalty, and that means he is one of the most powerful creatures to roam the realms. The fact you are still here shows how talented of a fighter you are. Don't put yourself down. He stared at me with a look of admiration. Thank you. Learn Liberty. Call me Liberty for this. I cut him off, smiling softly. Thank you, Liberty. So, what happened next? Then Gomez told us through Mind Link that Delta Moon's warriors were at the border, preparing to attack. They had planned this with Azazel perfectly. They knew Alpha Gabriel would try to avenge you and would leave Gomez and possibly me to fight them. Morpheus went with them, thankfully. But the pack can't fight to the best of their ability without their Alpha by their side. My heart sank to my chest in worry. We had trained hard for this and still. Yet we were unprepared for all of the possibilities. It was just Alpha and me against Azazel. He used his powers to slow down my heart, making me pass out. I have no idea what happened to Alpha Gabriel. That made my concern for him grow. Gabriel was a strong Alpha and impressive fighter. But against Azazel, a dark fire with powers, he didn't stand a chance. Hell, even I didn't stand a chance. Okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Oddly calm, a plan was forming in my mind. We had to have a plan. I want you to search the entire pack house for any pack members. Take them to the safe house. Then, when you're done, go and join them as if you feel up to it. If not, stay with the vulnerable pack members. Blade looked at me like he looked at Gabriel with respect. I am more than able to fight for my pack, he informed me, referring to the last section of my order. I smiled proudly. As I was about to pull away, he grabbed my arm, preventing me. Even though we've had our differences, Luna, I want you to know I'm happy you're his mate. I didn't see it, but now I do. You're his match. He needs you as much as you need him, he uttered with sincerity. Maintaining eye contact, my eyes began to well up with unshed tears. It took a lot of restraint for me to hold back. Gabriel is just as lucky to have such a loyal beta, I murmured in reply, choking up. With that, I clambered to my feet and scanned the room. To Blade's left was a gigantic, gaping hole. I had somehow missed it. My eyes stopped scanning the room once I landed on Blade, and so I failed to notice it. I had a sinking suspicion the hole had been created by Gabriel and Daisy. Jumping through it, I landed in another room, and to my horror, saw something I wished to never see. Gabriel had been shoved through the window and had fallen from the 4th floor, and standing above his body was my worst nightmare. 44 eyes eel, the world around me seemed to shift. I stared in horror at the sight below me, afraid for my mate's life. He wasn't moving and his eyes were squeezed shut. As Eel loomed over him, a sadistic smirk on his face. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I yelled, my voice hitting new octaves. As soon as my words rippled through the air, his attention was on me. Those dark green eyes I had come to hate with so much passion settled on me, and his lips turned into a vicious smirk. Step away from him. He turned his back to Gabriel, giving me a full view of his bloodied state. 3 fresh claw marks were stretched down half of his face, giving him an ominous look. He looked deadly. A cough fear trailed down my spine. You're finally awake. I was starting to think the antidote was wrong. His eyes flashing with sick humor. Why don't you come down here and talk to me? I narrowed my eyes at his request, mentally debating whether to go through it or not. Eventually, I decided to concede. I rushed down to the building, ignoring the eerie feeling that swirled in my stomach. There was a heavy breeze that sang in the air as I stepped outside. It was as if the gods who controlled the weather sent the dismal atmosphere. Azazel was now standing against a tree close to Gabriel's body, his arms crossed over his chest. His expensive, looking clothes seemed so out of place. Blood-coated parts of his body, appearing as if he had attended a bloodbath. You were responsible for my near-death, knowing in my heart he was behind it. And now you're trying to kill my mate. He pushed himself off the tree and glared at me. And you left me at our engagement party. Angrier. My parents were furious. I was embarrassed. I could never picture Azazel losing his temper. He was so controlled, albeit cruel and cold, but still in control of his emotions, or whatever emotions he could feel. However, now he looked like a maniac. How had he lost complete control of himself? Had his quest to find me turned him into this monster? Neither of us wanted to get married to each other, I pointed out, staying calm. My heart was thundering in my chest, my worries directed at my mate. This was forced on us. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I couldn't marry you knowing I had it out there. He pursed his lips together. We are royalty, and so it's our duty to put aside our wants for the greater good. He fought back, speaking harshly. You are a coward. Liberty. So weak. And there was the man I had met at my engagement party. He hadn't lost his charm. I narrowed my eyes at him, refusing to let him knock me down again. Since coming to Red Night and meeting Gabriel, I had found my balance. I found my rock, and I wasn't going to let its power slip from my grasp. Stepping forward, I squared my shoulders and glowered at him. The only weak thing I did was let myself be poisoned by you. I won't be making a mistake like that again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You liked that? A mischievous and dark glint flashed in his orbs. I hated how he could revel in this. I hated his eyes on my body, examining my outfit from head to toe. He saw me unconscious without the ability to fight back. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Liberty. Gabriel was in the room too. He wouldn't let that monster touch me. Who would have thought my betrothed would have grown a backbone? Knowing it would rile me up. So, now that you have this newfound strength, what are you going to do? Fight me? I faltered for a brief moment. I had impulsively stormed out here, my mind whizzing with too many thoughts, with no plan in mind. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Well, I did. I just wasn't sure if I could pull it off. I was still regaining energy from the poison and the spell I cast on Blade. Killing Aziel would bring me so much pleasure, but it would always bring a whirlwind of accusations and possibly my death. The Darkfire would try and have my head, but he had to be stopped. He attempted to murder me, and he was working for Delta, Moon. I couldn't just let him walk away. I want you to disappear, I declared, my voice strong and unwavering. To anyone else, it would appear I was as cool as a cucumber. However, that wasn't the case. I was definitely nervous. Aziel was angry, and anger made people unpredictable. As Aziel threw his head back and laughed boisterously. He found my demand hilarious, and that pissed me off. Oh, Liberty, Princess Liberty of the Lightfire, the youngest sibling. What are you going to do? He taunted, moving closer to me. He wanted me to cower, to step back and show I wasn't as strong as I portrayed, keeping my face neutral. I answered him with a brave voice. I may not have as much power as you, but I can access one form of magic you can't. Although he maintained a confident expression in his eyes, the moment I mentioned the magic I could access, he quivered. You're bluffing, he commented, refusing to believe I would. You see, there was dark magic that only Lightfire could tap into. In order to access it, you had to have a pure soul. Darkfire didn't have that. Their souls were black and impure. But, by using this magic, I would compromise myself. By saying the spell, my soul would be blackened, and I'd lose a part of who I was. There weren't many Lightfire who dared to utter the words. In any other circumstances, I'd never even think about using it. But I had to get rid of Aziel. No, I shook my head, my eyes showing how I wasn't lying. I'm willing to do anything to get you out here. He saw that glint of determination and seemed to understand that I wasn't joking. Knowing I had the upper hand aggravated him. Aziel snuck his hand into his jacket pocket and produced it dagger. I barely had a second to process what was happening. Aziel was colliding with me, and I felt my body fall into the ground in slow motion. The air around me was shed, my powers coming into play at the threat. I could see the grey skies above me and Aziel's dark green eyes. Flashing in fury, I heard a crackle of thunder in the sky. A small scream tore through my lips, and just as I was about to crash to the ground, but the weight that was pressed against me was gone. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I threw a hand over my racing heart, feeling no wound. Sitting up quickly, I was glad to see my mate tearing Aziel off me and trying to get the dagger off Aziel. Rising to my feet, I rushed over to my mate and used my magic to create vines from the ground. They slowly twirled from trees around us, moving swiftly to Aziel's feet. He didn't see them coming. His concentration on Gabriel, they wrapped around his feet. Tightly, his eyes snapped to his feet, but by then, he was too late. Aziel went tumbling to the ground, yelling profanities. As soon as he was on the ground, I wrapped the vines around his entire body, leaving no room for him to fight back. You're awake, A familiar voice breathed as I was enveloped in a heartwarming and bone-crushing hug. I wrapped my arms around him, breathing in his intoxicating scent. Gabriel nestled his head into the crook of my neck and hailed my scent. I thought I lost you. Liberty. For a second, I thought I was gone too. I mumbled, shakily. His thick arms tightened around me, holding on to me for dear life. The mate bond hummed in relief, sizzling my skin. Thank you for trusting him and saving me. I know it was a hard thing to do, but thanks. I stepped back and watched his expression shift from happy to angry. He glanced at the scarred man on the floor, his eyes full of hate. Clearing my throat, I turned my attention to Aziel, reigning control of my emotions. We could have an intimate moment later. Right now I had a dark prince to deal with. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. If you don't leave this realm and your home, I will use the on you. I warned, standing next to Gabriel. He was breathless and there were scratches over his body. Even with the bloodstains and scratches, he managed to look handsome. I was relieved he was awake and able to fight. Gabriel tilted his head to the side. What did you say? I pinched my lips together. The dark curse. It's a forbidden spell that only Lightfi can use. It turns the victim's veins to ice and makes their skin transform into stone. It's a slow and painful curse. Aziel hissed, struggling on the ground. You won't do it. Liberty. You'd never be able to live with the consequences. I pursed my lips as Gabriel's eyes widened in alarm. Consequences. What consequences? He quizzed, sharply. I cursed Aziel for revealing this. Sighing, I grabbed onto Gabriel's hand and focused my attention on him. Those who use the dark curse open their souls up to darkness. If you are not strong enough to handle it, it can taint you. But that won't happen to me. I'm strong because I have you. Surprisingly, a tender expression fell on his face. I had never seen him so open to his emotions. He cupped my cheeks and commanded me to gaze into his grey orbs. I'm not losing you. Liberty. Gently, I placed my hands on top of his and softly said, You won't. I will have you to ground me. That's all I need. He exhaled in exasperation. He clearly didn't want me to do this. As Aziel could agree to my terms, and if he does, I won't have to do it. I reminded him, hoping he'd go along with this. Deep down I knew Aziel was too cowardly to let himself be cursed and killed. He'd rather run with his tail between his legs and spend the rest of the days hidden in a realm. My eyes pleaded with Gabriel's. It took some time for him to come around to the idea. Eventually, he released a long breath and rested his forehead against mine. I love you. My heart stopped at those words. I had heard them speak to me before. I had been alive for over 80 years, and so I'd had my fair share of relationships. But none of them meant as much to me as this. Gabriel was my soulmate, the only person in this ever-changing world who could make me feel complete. My love for him ran so deep that I couldn't imagine my life without him. I'd take a bullet for him. I'd sacrifice myself for him. I'd follow him to the afterlife and beyond. I'd risk Kurt's survival just to spend another second with him. I loved him. Truly, purely, simply. I loved him. I love you too. I replied. Honestly. His eyes shone with unshed tears, and I felt my heart swell with pride knowing he let me see his vulnerable side. The moment was ruined by my betreth. Gabriel, if you let her do this, she'll become a monster. The dark curse doesn't just affect the victim but also the curse bearer. It curses them both. She'll have to live knowing what she did. It will swallow her. Aziel was interrupted by my mate who growled. Venomous lie. I trust my mate. You asshole. The corners of my lips quirked upwards. Aziel paled, knowing I was willing to do this and risk my life. It made him fumble over his words pathetically. Humorously, I watched this once sadistic and confident man withdraw into himself. He looked scared. So what will it be, Aziel? Aziel licked his lips together nervously, darting his green eyes around, hoping someone would come and save him. They wouldn't. He was alone. Aye, he stammered. I'll leave. A full, lone smile spread onto my face at his answer. Before I could release it. However, I had to go over a few things. Firstly, I told him about the conditions. You can never return to your home. You will disappear without a trace and will not contact anybody you know. The realm you choose cannot be this realm either. When you get there, you must not tell anybody who you are. I told him as Gabriel encircled an arm around my waist. To make sure you don't go against these terms or attack me once I release you, I will make a magical contract. Fluttering my eyes closed, I focused on creating an enchanted contract. I envisioned the terms and bound Aziel's name to them. Once he signed it with his blood, he was stuck to it. If he broke these rules, his heart would stop. It was a sudden punishment, but at least he had the option to live on. Once I had finished making my head, I imagined it coming into existence. Suddenly, I could feel the thick paper radiating with magic. Now, the only thing left to do was take some of his blood. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. If you accept the terms of the contract, you will let me take a drop of your blood. Am I allowed to do that? Dejectedly, he muttered a yes. Reluctantly, Gabriel let go of me and watched like a hawk as I kneeled next to Aziel and inflicted a small cut on his arm. One single drop of his blood soared straight onto the page, binding him to me. Aziel winced as he felt its magic wrap around his heart. It was done.